What is education, and why is education important? Is it important? After all, what's the real purpose of getting educated about anything? We so frequently take education and the process for learning in general totally for granted. Not only that, but the ways in which we think. How we've gone about structuring our own consciousness itself has largely remained unchanged for a long, long time. So how do we literally change our minds? Can we reconfigure our own ways of thinking? And if so, how? Join Dr. Joseph Atman, the founder of one of the world's most revolutionary educational centers, Middletree, and award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo for Educate Everyone, and explore the mysteries of our own consciousness and the education we implement in order for it to be what it is.
And on this episode of Educate Everyone, our conversation with Phalana Tiller continues. She's the vice president of Bendable Labs, a social purpose corporation dedicated to improving the economic welfare of individuals across the United States. Phalana leads the Harbor Freight Leadership Lab, a program designed to strengthen K-12 skilled trades education by honing the skills of emerging leaders. She's passionate about cultivating empathy and agency in learners of all ages. Now here's Phalana Tiller and Dr. Joe Atman.
We're still trying to find this middle path between technological integration and that complete and total, like what's becoming saturation versus this still humanistic centered approach. And because we're human beings in the ways that we traditionally always have been in most instances. So you've got to, again, hearken back to that nature while integrating the new capacities that are here to stay, obviously.
You know, there's a massive universe of tasks and needs and problems in the world that can't be solved through digital means, right? They need human hands on them and human eyes on them. And so these things are not irrelevant, even though AI and such is growing.
You could have a conversation with AI and you can learn a lot. You can learn a ton from it. However, at least for me, and maybe because I'm still have one foot entrenched in the old schoolness, but at least for me, there's something ineffable. It's some sort of indescribable spark that happens when you actually are interacting with someone. In any case, of course, that's going to be different, just normal human interactions. But what I'm trying to point to here is when I'm in a learning kind of situation or some sort of environment where I'm either trying to disseminate information or information is trying to be downloaded onto me by someone else. There's something different that happens when it's occurring between myself and another individual, as opposed to when it's occurring between myself and something I'm,
and yourself and yourself or yourself and that material.
But I mean, that could be said that even 50 years ago when people just had access to information through libraries or
text,
encyclopedias or whatnot.
With
text, with information that was in some ways now coming to you from a second party through a medium. Then you have to have your own comprehension of it, and then your own biases and your own limited understanding can kind of get in the way, and yada yada. So where AI can kind of help you through some of those latter things, but there's something that again happens very organically when we have just these head-to-head conversations with other people, right, in a learning situation.
And this is exactly why we say that learning is inherently social. That's where you get the distinction between information and knowledge, or the distinction between information and wisdom. If you're just consuming information, but there's no chewing, testing, sharing with other people, you're not necessarily going to move beyond the information state. You're going to probably remain static in some comprehension that isn't really about knowledge or wisdom. So I think both and all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's this cool space, right, that we're at right now, just within the evolution of technology and where we are just in general. But it's so new that we're all trying to figure it out, and we're all kind of excited about it. I think, and again, maybe this is because I'm still slightly old school about it, that I think you still do, in order to get the best possible experience, it needs to be as human as possible. in terms of when we're talking about putting yourself in a learning environment and situation. Because like you said, we are biological beings, but beyond that, we're human beings, whatever that is, and that evolves. That kind of being is constantly evolving, and it's not just attached to biology per se. There's something about our own consciousness that really makes us what we are, or at least in part, is that human being. And how we learn is part of that. And of course, we are social beings. And I think you hit the nail on the head, because that's the thing that's really important within the process, right? Is that that social element, whether you're getting that information from a book or from an AI or online or wherever, that there's something that happens within the inherent structure of learning.
When you have to exchange it with somebody else, when you have to.
When you have to exchange it. When there are two imperfect beings kind of passion it out together. When you're learning something, but you're also teaching both yourself and the person or people that you're conversing with, even if you know nothing about it, just by asking questions, just by interacting in whatever ways, processing and thinking about things, and again, having that dialogue. And it's the dialogue that really is maybe the most important thing. I mean, back in the day, the old
Socratic method.
Academy, right? That's I just said that is the Socratic method, right? It's not here's all this text to read. We're having a dialogue about this stuff.
Yes.
And I kind of forgotten about. I mean, I always know about the original Academy and all that, but as we were talking about this and just I'm unpacking it myself kind of rawly, I totally forgotten that really that is the original way that education was formally set up.
Yeah.
So there is an element and a nature to that, which I hope doesn't get lost. And it sounds like Bendable Labs is in a very real way preserving for a lot of people.
We think we are. We think we're making some important contributions in that direction. The one other totally analog part of my portfolio and my work, which I am totally excited about and I geek out on, that has the most of my attention, more so than the platform, is work I do with skilled trades educators across the country. And so that's squarely in the consulting arm of our work, right? So platform aside, research aside, this work is about actually recognizing that the skilled trades and the kind of latter half of the 20th century and the first half of this century, we were still under this spell of college for all for a long time, in a way that was ignoring the fact that less than 40% of Americans have a college degree. But we were still creating these pressures in our schools and our school systems around preparing people to be college ready and college bound. And I've always had a real discomfort with that. I'm not really sure where it originated, but I've always had this sense that shouldn't we be thinking about getting kids ready to make good, informed decisions and then equip them with the skills to go pursue whatever that thing is? Is it culinary? Is it shipbuilding? Is it being a poet and an English major at a little liberal arts college? Or is it going to an ag tech school? There's so many ways that we could be informing what school is for that isn't just limited to college. College is great. I'm a big fan of college. I don't reject college at all. I think college and career is what we should always be talking to young people about and helping them be able to look at a life that maybe includes a little bit of both in whatever order is right for you. And so I love that I get to do this work because it's specific to the larger ecosystem of the skilled trades, and then particularly working with classroom educators and then folks who are part of that larger ecosystem, whether they're a superintendent or a guidance counselor or a master scheduler, or they're actually in industry or work with labor unions or are a skilled craftsperson themselves. I mean, this is a complete other end, back to this question of analog and old school, right? And so when I was introducing myself, I said, I never get bored. I am always learning. If you set all Bendable platform work aside entirely, I still have this incredible rich life working with these folks and interacting with them, again, whether it's Vermont or upstate New York or Florida or Louisiana or a Navajo community or someone in Oregon, et cetera. There's so many different ways that our schools and our communities are all grappling with the same questions, but the details obviously being important and very different depending on, again, context and what happens in that place. But there's the same core question of how do we help our young people be able to come through whatever systems of preparation we have here, whatever our schools are? How do we help those young people come through those experiences in those systems and then be able to exercise the agency to make informed decisions about what's next for them so that they can be contributing members of society who feel like they're doing either work or learning or a combination of the two things that taps into their own strengths, interests, and values. And no one feels like they got pigeonholed or just kind of like bullied by the system or guilted by their parents or whatever it is that happens that, makes people make decisions when they're young that aren't necessarily taking in a fuller picture of what's possible. I love this work. This is really cool stuff for me. It takes up my daydreaming time, my weekends, my nights. I think about it all the time.
Earlier, you said you felt like you won the career lottery. So,
hands down.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have that feeling, even if you won the career little lotto, you're doing well or you're in the right. So, what do you think that ultimate fix? Because basically what Bendable Labs is doing, what we're doing at Middle Tree, what we're doing is education reform, very specifically in certain areas. What you all are doing is a very alternative, it shouldn't be the alternative path, but it is like an alternative path. So what do you think that the fix is within our current, I don't even want to say our educational system, but like within the educational process? Because the way that we go about education, clearly, I think if you asked 100 people on the street, 100 of them would say that we're not doing everything that we could. Not only, again, the system of education, but how we go about education as a process and how we approach education just in general. Mm-hmm. What would you say that needs to change within that process? And it can be obviously the things that you all are doing at Bendable, but any of your own thought are welcomed here as well.
That's a huge question, Joe. Because I am clear that there isn't necessarily one way of doing education and learning. I think there are a number of different potential fixes or solutions that could go on. The list is probably exhaustive. But I think in general, I think our public education philosophies, I think we have a lot of room to be more courageous about disaggregating things like seat time from when and how learning happens. I think there's a lot of opportunity to have more of a focus on trusting exploration, trusting kids to learn through real kind of supported, interest-driven inquiry. And there are a lot of people doing this kind of work across the country in different ways, right? So I'm focusing on public education because that's my background. I went to public schools and I taught in public schools. And so I have a lens that's pretty comfortably focused in that universe. I'm happy for families to have choice and explore private models if they want to, but that's not my experience or my expertise. So I don't really spend a lot of time thinking there. Yeah. But I think one of the challenges is because we're such a large country and we have a real kind of patchwork quilt of what education looks like across the different states because of their different needs and histories and priorities and economies, et cetera. The system doesn't talk to itself very well. And so then having shared values and philosophies around a direction for public education across the country is really, really hard because people are out of practice. And I think people tend to be a little bit afraid of collaborative systems change and collaborative exploration around systems level challenges. I think if I had a magic wand, I would put that wand to work to do something that kind of takes down the fear and judgment and then like cordoning off of people's efforts and work and kind of bring down some of those walls and silos and anxieties and give space for a little bit more magnanimity across the country so that people can say, look, I know that like the economy in Mississippi is very different from the economy in California. Okay, got it. However, there's got to be a lot that California can learn from what is happening in Mississippi and vice versa. Is there not like a core set of principles that we all agree to that we want to help young people be connected to the kinds of learning that equips them to be self-sustaining and be lifelong learners? Can we not agree to like support each other in that? And then the how can look very different in each place. But I feel like just so much of what I run into is these walled off contexts that don't always do a great job of looking up and out to the horizon and seeing what else can I learn from where else. And one of the small ways that lives out, as I think about a fair bit, is even little things like transcripts and how a kid who moves from West Virginia to Arizona, they may have covered all the standard elements and content, ninth grade algebra, but because the course code and the terminology that's used in this other state is a little bit different, a kid might not get credited for having completed that just because the transcripts don't talk to each other. And they're going to have to redo a class. It's like, no, I know this stuff. I have mastered this content. I know it. I'd like to move on, please. But they can't have the high school credit and then the ability to graduate on time just because of something like that. I mean, I know I've launched from big philosophical
No.
effort at trying to answer this big question down to something as granular as that. But it's such an epic quagmire. I wish for more young people that there were systems that talk to each other better. I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn here and having a recollection that just kind of moved me super deeply. But I was touring a phenomenal school in Jefferson County, just outside of Denver in Colorado, called the Cherry Creek Innovation Center. And it's kind of like an ROP, like what we have in Southern California, regional occupational program, but it's not exactly that. But they draw from different sending schools in that region. This school, this Cherry Creek Innovation Center, is relatively new. It was funded through a bond measure where the community elected to tax itself to fund this place. And it's incredible. I mean, it's a whole career education extravaganza. It's like Mall of America, but for learning and learning trades. They've got a whole construction area. They have an aviation area, marketing and communications. I mean, they have such a range and incredible high quality resources, instructors, physical spaces for doing this kind of learning. And on the tour with me was an educator from Connecticut. She herself is 30 years in the auto industry. And then on top of that, 30 years as a classroom instructor in auto mech tech. She's a prize winning teacher. She sits on a bunch of different state commissions in Connecticut. She knows her industry well, both the auto side in terms of the industry, but also the education, teaching young people auto mech tech. And she at one point on this tour stopped and had to turn and face the wall in the corner and just I couldn't tell if she's feeling unwell. Is you hot? Are you about to faint? Is it the altitude? What's going on? Are you okay? And she was welling up with tears in her eyes. And I just said, is everything all right? Can I help you with anything? She said, no, I'm just so struck and overwhelmed and sad that not every kid can have this. I got a little verklempt myself because I didn't disagree. I felt very much the same way. And I know that's not possible everywhere, but man, the accident of the zip code. Yeah, right. Yeah. It really should be. The accident of where my parents happen to settle and send me to school, that determines the opportunities that I get to experience. I don't know. That just feels like such a pity when this country is historically the land of opportunity, innovation, ingenuity. And could we not figure out in our education systems ways to better lay out opportunities for young people to explore and have high quality learning that is trades related as well as college and or academia related or arts related? That we settled on this one idea of what success looks like, and that being college, is really unfortunate. Like I said, I'm a big fan of college, and college, we know, can change the trajectory of a family, a neighborhood for generations just by having one or two people have gone to college from that family. And we know that there are real benefits for communities and individuals to have college-going traditions and culture, but it's not everybody all the time. We know that already. We tried it. It never happened. We've never had more than 40% of Americans acquire bachelor's degrees. So we already are a nation of majority of people who don't complete college. So why do we position and sort of fly this flag around what our K-12 schools are for? Why are we so over-indexed in this idea of preparing them for college when that has never been who we actually are? And it just seems like such a missed opportunity because we can and could and should be doing right by young people by really saying college is one of the many things you could do, but we're going to give you an opportunity to access and learn a lot of things that can get you ready. So I meandered in your big question.
Hey, no. It's a big question with no real simple answer. Maybe it is as simple as we just need to give people, not just young people. I know you reference young people a number of times, but I mean, the work that you all do is about lifelong learning.
That's right.
A large part of it, right? So
that's right.
I think we need to expand because there's some thought, at least traditionally the last 100 years or so that, you go to school, a certain age and you stop going to school at a certain age.
Yeah.
And this is where I do hope and think that technology will help facilitate a change with this, but that shouldn't be where we're at. The learning should be something that continues to take place and having access to information, different sorts of exposures, I hope is something that technology will be able to better facilitate for all of us. Maybe the answer is as simple as having more programs out there like Bendable Labs, or maybe people need to do more research about what other alternative options they might have to getting not only their students, but their themselves educated in whatever ways that they want to. You shouldn't be the victim of your zip code.
That's right.
At least in terms of learning. And college does do a great job of not making people victims of that. But then, of course, there is a hefty cost associated with that.
That's right.
So we've monetized the learning system, and that's probably not the best way to do it there. Although, of course, everything you need money to do, I get that. But wouldn't it be great if there was a way to give everyone equal access to just this whole litany and plethora of options, and maybe even give people a catalog for what those options would be, right? Yeah.
Starting in transitional kindergarten, start talking about it from like little kids.
Who are you? Trying to figure out who you are. And of course, your education should help inform who you are and what your contribution to the larger narrative. And that should happen at the earliest possible stage. Not that you have to make a decision or be pigeonholed ever, but,
that's right.
But that information about who you are and what your passions are should be drawn out, where they're so frequently snuffed out, not drawn out of people by the educational system. That's something that needs to change as well, right? So again, maybe just having more options out there and available would be a great start.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks who are thinking about this and working on this, and the idea of exposure, exploration, and experience being how you want to get young people connected to them getting a better sense of who they are and what they want to do. And those 3 E's, if you will, can live out in so many different ways at whatever age and stage you are. And I love what you said about that learning doesn't end with college or high school. I think the superpower is learning how to learn and being someone who's capable of ongoing learning. And that's where you find resilience and adaptability in a real kind of chance to build a life that feels a little bit more agentic and unique to yourself, because you can respond and react when situations are out of your control. Oh, the industry, the market's changing, the economy's changing. Well, shoot, I know I better learn how to podcast real quick, or I better learn how to edit sound, and I know how to take myself through the paces to learn this new thing. Is it coding? Is it a language? I'm going to be a sous chef. Like having both the conscious willingness, but then also the resources to be a lifelong learner. I went to the University of Virginia, so I have a little bit of a Jeffersonophile attitude. He was known for there is no end to learning. You asked me when we first started chatting a little bit about my career trajectory. And I would say whether it was intentional or not, I don't know that it was, but every turn, every shift has been about me seeing an opportunity to learn or having a new skill, because whatever situation I put myself into required some learning. And so I did the learning, right? And I think all of us need to have the kind of humility and curiosity to be a student in whatever form at whatever point all the time, because that's probably what's going to keep you nimble and able to respond and to make choices that you probably couldn't describe in advance, but you're ready for when they turn up, when you're confronted with them. That's my one nag to all my former students and mentees and nieces and nephews is very much like, yeah, okay, I know you think you finished high school and that's cool and all, you accomplished something, or you're going to college and you graduated, you accomplished something. That's all true. I want you to think of yourself as a constant learner. I want you to continue to be someone who's pursuing answers to questions that you maybe didn't have 6 weeks ago, but you're going to formulate them, or you're going to encounter them through this news article you read, or a film you watched, or an incident you saw at a city council meeting. What could you be learning that's going to help you be able to kind of recognize that you can have a hand in responding to these things or shaping a new reality for other people or yourself? You don't have to know all the things all the time, but you have to be comfortable and willing and able to learn. And that itself is a discipline. And
it's a humility, like you said. I mean, you do have to put yourself in a place of vulnerability in order to be exposed and take in information freely to what it is that you are being exposed to in an unbiased and unfiltered way. It's a hard thing to do, but a really important part of it all.
Back to your big question about my magic wand, what would I do differently? What do I think is a fix? I mean, a lot of it is like, we don't have the cultural humility to say, ooh, that didn't work. What could we be doing differently? All of our school systems are like, no, don't look over here. Worry about yourself.
It's also this huge bureaucratic machine.
Sure.
It's the question that we're seeking out, not only at Middle Tree, but on this podcast. Maybe not even looking for the one magic bullet or one magic wand wave per se, but like, what are some other options? And again, I think what you all are doing at least presents an alternative.
We think we're a great complement to traditional learning spaces. We don't have any interest in dismantling those because they're important and they do the work of educating people. So we think of ourselves as really good icing on what are some pretty great cakes out in the world, that we can be complementary and additive and not necessarily a replacement for anything.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Absolutely.
I would love to follow up with you and hear about all the things that both you and Bendable Labs are continuing to do out there in the great wide world. And appreciate your time here today. Thank you for the work that you do. And here's to a long and successful lottery winning career.
And one that's filled with lots of learning, right? For both of us.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Cheers to that.
And now the Middle Tree Minute.
This is Kristen Hernandez, Middle Tree's executive assistant. When your child says, "I can't do this," try adding one small word, yet. Saying "I can't do this yet" reminds the brain that skills develop over time. This tiny shift builds resilience and a growth mindset. It helps kids see challenges are temporary, not permanent. Over time, the word becomes a powerful tool they can use on themselves. And that's the Middle Tree Minute.
And now a quick look into Dr. Atman's book, A Philosophical War. Joe, we've spent the last couple of times talking about how human beings react to the physical world and how we're always trying to find a way to dominate it or change it or be in charge of it. So why do we have that kind of a relationship with the world?
That is an excellent question, because we talked about last time of how we sort of have a master-slave relationship with the physical world. That is, the physical world dominates human beings. It seems to dominate every form itself that we're able to observe. No one and nothing is immune to the physicality of the universe. And because that's how we observe things, we take such care and attention and focus on the physical nature that's very apparent and right in front of us with everything, that we've geared our consciousness, we've geared our observational powers towards looking at the physical as that primary thing. And so naturally then what we have tried to do, and what all forms attempt to do within this mode of being, within physicality, is to try and survive within it. Human beings, however, they have this different sort of relationship to the world and to phenomena than a lot of other beings that we observe actually do. And it's a relationship we talked about again and again here. The cat is totally satisfied with being a cat. It doesn't question what the meaning of life, its cat life is, and all of that, where human beings do. And so we have to ask, why is that? And I think it has a lot to do with this relationship and the way that we view our place in the world and within otherness itself, within this physical realm that we're living within. Because one of the amazing things about us, but it might also be the sort of cause for a lot of the strife and difficulty that we experience, is that we're always trying to get better. We're always trying to become something that we currently are not. And again, that's what makes human beings, in one sense, completely and totally amazing. But it also has and sets up within us this effect that we're never satisfied, that we're never where we want to necessarily be. And because we have that relationship with the world, that in and of itself causes that strife and that sort of overall difficulty that I was referencing previously. So the question is, why do we want to become in the first place? Why do we want to become more, become different, be better, and I'm not saying it's a noble cause. It's just that it's something that we don't, again, like all of these other things. How have we come to have the kind of consciousness that we've had? How have we come to have the kind of being that we have? Like all these different things, it's something we don't really look into that much. Why do we want to become? Why do we want to strive for more? What's the purpose behind that? Why aren't we satisfied with the existence of the cat, right? Or the existence of any kind of being that is struck, at least from our observational standpoint, this balance within their own environment, with the world, with the universe at large. I think we've argued to great detail about how human beings don't have that satisfaction. We don't have that stasis. We don't have that lockstep of harmony within our world at large, within our own selves, all of these things. This is almost borderline a psychological issue. I'm bringing it into the philosophical and saying, why aren't we satisfied? So many great things come out of that lack of satisfaction and are a direct path and correlation to that want to further ourselves and to be better, to be more. But again, much like we need to ask why we have the kind of consciousness that we do, why we have the kind of being that we do, why do we have this need within us to want to be more? Is it because we're trying to evolve to something, or are we trying to get back to something?
Thank you for listening to Educate Everyone with Dr. Joseph Atman and Tammy Trujillo. Join us each week as we explore the inner workings of our own minds and the educational system which builds and supports it. Also, check out our website at middletree.org to see what opportunities Middletree's programs can offer you or your student. And join us on social media. If you have any questions you'd like Dr. Atman to answer, please leave them on a post or send us a message, and you may hear them answered on the next episode of Educate Everyone. Until then, thanks for tuning in.